And we are rolling with Mark Attwood, who he reminded me in the green room that I haven't actually talked to him on, StreamYard, Zoom, whatever, since 2000 or 2020, right? Or was it
Yeah,
2021?
probably 21, but it was, yeah, it's
It
4
was
years ago.
early in 2021, maybe. It's funny because I feel like I see you and I know you, and so I get an idea of how people will be like sending me an email going, I would love it if we were friends. And I'm always like, oh, that's so creepy. But I kind of get it, you feel
Yeah.
like you know the person because you've seen them so much. Absolutely love your positive attitude. I think it's the one thing that we probably have the most in common.
Well, it's a choice. Everything's a choice, isn't it? You could.
Okay, so hold on. So sorry. People are
Oh,
saying there's no sound.
okay.
And I definitely know that when I got onto StreamYard, it said that YouTube was having problems, but I don't know because my sound check worked. I hear you fine. You hear me fine.
Yeah,
I wonder if we should get off and try again, maybe.
I'm all yours.
Okay, let's here. I'm gonna tell him. Oh, bummer. I've been wanting to do this for so long. Has this ever happened to you
Uh, Once or twice, I think.
where the sound didn't work?
It's just,
Oh,
it's just, it's
it
just
says
Larry.
now we hear you.
Yeah, Larry says it's good now.
Okay, phew, thank God.
Woo!
So, that was like, oh man. All right, well, welcome everyone, and everything I talked about already doesn't matter. Mark, tell us what you call your view of the apocalypse.
Well, yeah, I call myself an apocalyptimist. I think I nicked that off the internet about 5 years ago because it's the apocalypse just means the great revealing, and I'm an optimist about the outcome despite all the craziness. I think these are biblical times, and I've known since I was born that this was coming. I was always a weird kid and didn't feel like I belonged here. And I think
Hmm.
the great thing about COVID, and there was a lot, however you view it, the great thing about it was we now know who everybody is. And well, not everybody, but it's just far clearer than it ever
Hmm.
has been. And it's brought us closer to God. And made us understand what sovereignty means and made us realize how powerful we are, and that's a wonderful thing. So there are, I see the always look on the bright side of life, as Monty Python said. That's the way I see things.
Yeah, I've just recently started interviewing this gentleman by the name of James True. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he thinks so far out of the box. It's fascinating, and he wrote a book called "The Best Apocalypse Ever."
I
And
need to read that book.
yeah, and actually, you should have him on. He is, oh my gosh, fascinating. Like I get the same feedback from. It's funny how the people that predominantly are on my channel, the subs for me, are very strict in their views of Christianity, and I'll have somebody on for a completely different reason. It's nothing to do with anything, and they're very judgmental, and it's sad because his people came onto my channel and they were all so, oh, this was great, I love seeing him in a new light. And so it is kind of interesting how people react to. Do you have that where people like give you a hard time for someone you have on your channel?
Oh, I get a hard time just for being me.
Well, it all started when you were a child. So let's go back though. I want to hear, how did you know that this was coming as a child?
Well, I didn't know specifically this was coming as a child, but I knew that I was lecturing my parents on household bills when I was 5 years old. I was always looking at the stars longingly. I always felt like I was out of place. I was more intelligent than everybody else and had to dumb myself down. I had demons attacking me and trying to recruit me in my bedroom from as long as ago as I can remember, which I put in this book.
Wow.
And so it was a constant, and I could hear God. I was always talking to God, even though it wasn't a religious family as such. My dad was kind of not atheist, I think. Really, I mean, he died a long time ago, but my great grandfather was very religious and would go to the church in our village. We had a 1,000-year-old church in our village, and he'd go there every Sunday. And he gave me the Bible on his deathbed and said all the answers are in there. And
Oh, wow.
all the way through, and I was very close to him. He was my great grandfather, So he was born in 1903. So I had a great 11 or 12 years with him. But I don't. I used to go to church with him just because I wanted to be with him, And church always freaked me out in a lot of ways.
Was it a Catholic church?
No, it was a Church of England church,
Oh, okay.
but it must have originally been a Catholic church because obviously it was 1,000 years old. So and it's a beautiful old sandstone building, and it's still there. I was only there 6 weeks ago. It's
Oh,
still
wow.
it's still stunning, and I can still smell it because it had this beautiful wooden benches and the stone floor and gorgeous stained glass windows. And my great grandfather used to climb the steeple without a rope when he was young. He was famous for it. He'd just climb up it. I mean, it was crazy. Um, so, what was the question? How did I
Oh,
know this?
about being a kid and knowing. And so I know for a fact you knew before I did, because you knew from the very, very first day from before it
Hmm.
began. And for me, it took me 3 weeks, but I got there. And really the main reason was because I was like, this is too many people are like in agreement with this. Like every one of my friends that like had started churches were closing their churches down, and I was like, why? And they're like, oh, it's so dangerous. And men, like Texas men, like guys that I really admired as being manly, were like shutting down their businesses, and everyone just went along with it so quickly. And I was like, this is surreal. Like what is really going on? And so I knew something was off. And thanks to 2015, that's when my eyes kind of awakened to a lot more. And so I definitely tuned in pretty quick, thanks to a lot of the good doctors like Andy Kaufman and Tom Cowan and Jennifer Daniels and even Dr. Shiva, a bunch of other ones. How about you? Like, how did you know before it began?
Well, I'd been called a conspiracy theorist for years because I was, and I'd been thrown out of parties. I've been talking about satanic ritual abuse. I've been talking about the Project for the New American Century. I've been talking about the Protocols of the Elders of Zion for at least 20 years before 20 years. Yeah, 20 years before COVID. Before that, I'd already woken up to the royal family because I was in the military as a teenager, and I resigned from there because I met Prince Philip, and he didn't recognize the uniform I was in at St. James's Palace. And I was like, well, hang on, well, how do you not recognize this uniform? You're the boss. And, there was lots and lots of things like that. And God put me in all these amazing positions, right? I was a journalist at the Daily Telegraph. I worked in television. I was a stand-up comic for years. I had businesses. I met some of the richest people in the world. And I saw how pedophile cases against the Catholic Church were being demolished. I was just in all these crazy positions. I was in the middle of Morocco for 4 years. I mean, just lots of, when I look back on it, fascinating positions that gave me insights into how this system really works and how evil it really is. Also, how beautiful and amazing it is at the same
Yes.
time, because those two things exist at the same time. And when I was actually giving a keynote speech in a beachfront hotel in Mauritius, and I was the keynote speaker at a conference for 600 barristers, Mauritian barristers, which is, of course, where all the hot money goes in the world and gets redistributed for the elites. And I didn't even know what I was doing there. And I was the keynote speaker. And I'd just been through a separation with my wife. At that point was 3 years of hell. I'd almost died. I'd been pulled back from the brink by God, basically, from being suicidal. And I was
Oh,
just
wow.
getting myself back together because I thought I'd lost I'd lost everything financially. I thought I'd lost my children. That wasn't the case, but I thought at the time it was, and I was just getting, basically what happened was I got given this opportunity to go and speak in Mauritius. I was a VIP there. And I was like, well, how did this happen? And when I got on stage, the AV broke. So I had to ad lib. And I said to the woman who was running it beforehand, he said, okay, if I swear on stage. So this is one of the stories of my life. She said, no, you can't swear. There's MPs, there's politicians, there's a lord there, there's lady so there. Anyway, the thing broke, and I got up and I did this thing called therapy, which I'd learned from a friend of mine. And I got all these people up on their feet, which is really a kind of a yoga. It's not yoga. What is it? It's a kind of exercising, letting go. So it's kind of the words are failing me, but it's a very powerful exercise for shifting the energy. And I had an amazing time on stage. And literally, when I came off, there was a big queue of people on the beach saying, "You're the best public speaker I've ever seen." And I was like, hey, I've got my mojo back. And literally that next day I got on the plane and somebody came up to me with a laser in my head. And I went, what was that? And then I stopped off in Paris airport on the way back to Ireland. And then people were wearing masks. And I was like, I could feel it. And I was like, oh, it's actually happening, because I'd read about it. If you read the Georgia Guidestones, if you read any of this stuff, I'd had a very, very healthy disrespect for vaccines my entire life.
Yeah.
They gave me, I'm not going to say the word, because if you're on YouTube, I can't even say the word, right? So they gave me these when I was a kid. I had one for, I can't remember if it was TB when I was young, and then one for measles, and I think they gave me one for meningitis, and then I got meningitis. And this is one of the first times that I nearly died.
That's a bad one to get. Oh,
yeah,
were you
a
kid?
Well, I nearly died when I was a kid with that.
Yeah.
And I had an out-of-body experience then, and I was speaking to what I think was an angel when I was about 7 or 8 years old. I've had a few near-death experiences where things like that have happened. And then because I've had 5 of my own children, I went through the whole vaccine. God, I didn't realize they put so many vaccines in kids. And that was a case of, no, you're not putting any more needles in my kid. So 4 of my kids are completely vaccine free, and one had one, and I regret that one. But I went through that whole process about those things, and I was like, this is all nonsense, because I knew years ago that polio was the main reason for these people believing in these things. But then once you find out polio is actually 800 different diseases, and really it was sanitation that solved that problem, and then this thing, and then you go back to the German, can't remember the name of the magazine, German magazine for New Health in 1896, with the picture of the woman holding her baby against a big snake that said vaccinate. And then you go back even further and you can see all these studies were done in the late 1800s against them. And then but that all teaches you to look into the Flexner report and the Rockefeller takeover of medicine and the Rothschilds and the whole allopathic system, which has killed so many of my relatives. And when it came, I knew it was coming. I felt it. And I remember sitting in the garden when I got back home going, okay, it's here. They're actually trying to do it.
Yeah.
Whoa. And then I drank a few bottles of wine for a few weeks. And then, because it was sunny outside in Ireland, which was very rare. So it was nice evenings in the sun. And then I took my son on a road trip, and I was getting nagged by God. And it was like, go on YouTube. And I was having this conversation going, why would I go on YouTube? And I'd been talking on Facebook about this stuff for a long time, lost loads of friends, been defriended by my own brother because he didn't know what I was talking about. But I just listened, and I gave the camera to my son, and I said, just film me. And he did. And then that started the channel. And then there were all these people. There weren't many people actually at the time that were being positive about it. And the ones that were, I sought out, and anyway, ended up doing shows of them, and then the whole thing just ballooned, and I just felt strongly that my job wasn't actually to wake people up, because I already knew all the stuff about I already knew all the conspiracies. I'd read every book on. I've got them all behind me. I'd already read all of David Icke's books. I'd read all Esoteric Hollywood. I've read some of the Law of One. I'd read just tons of them. I'm trying to think of names now, but you never can when you're on a show. F. William Engdahl's book on totalitarian, full spectrum attack, that kind of thing. So I already knew that we were run by psychopathic Satanists. I already knew that. I already knew that demons were real. I already knew that fourth dimensional entities were real. I'd already studied people like Aleister Crowley and people like that, and John Dee and all of that stuff, which is all connected to all of this. So I should be careful because they took my last YouTube channel down for discussing those names.
Oh, no.
So then I thought, well, what am I actually here for? What am I doing this for? And it was really like, well, just try to let those people that know that they're not normal either, that they're going to be okay and they're not alone.
Right.
And then sort of cheer them up if you can. And then all this poetry came out. I mean, I've always been a poet, but then I only tend to write during times of stress. If I'm happy, I don't write much poetry, but the times of stress, and then poem after poem after poem, millions of views. And that ended up with me touring America with Truth Tour 2 in 2022. I've done a lot of live shows. And
are you still in touch with a lot of those people?
Quite a lot of them, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I just remember, so do you remember, like, because at least in the States, I don't know about where you were, they put like a date, and it was March 13th was the day that was the last day we could stay out till midnight, and then we had to, like, the lockdown was going to begin. Did you guys have that same thing?
Yeah.
Okay. And the only reason I remember it so perfectly is that's my sister's birthday. And I remember we were out, and I remember how surreal it was, and how, like, people were really kind of leaving early and truly afraid. And I think that was my thing was, how I got into it was so backward because of Michael Jaco, and I wanted to learn how to remote view. Is literally how he and I met. And so then I said, hey, I really appreciate it. I learned it so fast. Like, I whatever you do, it works. And this is when I was kind of in my new age, new thought thing. And he's like, I was like, if you'd like, I'll give you a recommendation. And I thought I would write something. He's like, come on the show. And so that was my first time. And then we started doing shows together for a little bit. And that's when I met you and JCK the one time. But that was by the time we met, I had already gone through all of those rabbit holes that you were mentioning all afterwards. I had known the medical industry was horrifying because my mom died of cancer.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, thank you. But it's been one of the most wonderful things because, honest to God, today, one of my really good friends sent me a message saying, I have zeroed out on cancer. She had stage 2 breast cancer. She met with my dad's team. She worked it harder than my dad did. My dad gave up and he ended up dying, but she zeroed out today. And she had a 2-year fight with it. But it was all, metabolic approach. It's all just healthy and supplements and she's doing great. And I'm so proud of her. But long story short, because of being on Michael Jaco, by the time I decided to start my channel, I had like 300 people already, like, following me with nothing. And so it's kind of a nice head start. But I was shocked because I remember, this is my intro to it. My intro to it was, I was on my way back from Aruba. So it's kind of like you. I'm coming back from somewhere. It was the end of February. And they were asking every person if they'd been to China in the last 15 if they'd been to China in the last 15 days. And first of all, I was like, that's it. They just ask you. There's no lie detector test. There's no prove it, nothing. So it seemed so fake to me. And I think that was one of the things that started, like, really hitting off, was everything seemed off. Like, the difference between something that's real and AI. And so that's why I started looking into it. The other reason was my history was my ex and I had a hazardous waste company. And I knew.
I used to have one of those.
Oh, really? That's so crazy.
I just found this picture of me and Michael Jaco when we met in Florida.
Oh, that's awesome.
Look how short I am.
I know. That's funny because I always thought Michael Jaco was like 7 feet tall, just the way he looks, on camera. But anyway, when when I started thinking through it after we went into the flatten the curve stage, I was like, wait a minute, toxins, like hazardous waste toxins, are larger than viruses. And you know, if you had a company that if you go to a hazardous waste site, you have to tie back up, you have to go through a decontamination station. And then when you leave, same thing, decontamination station. We would wash off the trucks on the way out. They all had to be, washed off. And so I'm sitting there going, and they're keeping Amazon open? Like, this doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? And then you start looking at restaurants can't be open, but fast food can. And there are all these crazy rules.
Yeah, but it was so much fun as well. Because when, I was just going, I remember going to this restaurant and saying, so you're telling me you want me to put on a mask to walk 5 feet towards that door to go outside where I don't need to wear a mask? And they were
Yes.
going, yeah. I said, do you realize how stupid you sound? It's the rules. And when they turned their back, I snuck in. And then they came out and they were like, you can't be here. I said, well, hey, what? I'm not breaking any rules. I'm outside. I'm not wearing a mask. What's the problem? And then they hated me so badly. But on the way out of the restaurant, I gave them a big speech because they were Eastern European. I said, you came from communist countries. Your grandparents died because of communism. You've just been the worse than any of the oppressors they had to put up with. You should be ashamed of yourselves. So I've been barred from a few places, but I flew between lockdowns. I flew to Spain for a week, and then I realized that you could order a bag of peanuts, pull this down, and just eat very slowly. And
Yes.
it's just
That's what I did the first time I was on a plane. I got Twizzlers.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna keep that licorice hanging out of my mouth the whole time I'm in the plane. Also, like the people getting arrested for paddleboarding in California. I mean, that one was pretty crazy. That was nuts.
Yeah. So it was
Closing down the beaches, closing down the outdoor, anything outdoor. I mean, what they pulled off really is quite fascinating.
Yeah. Endlessly. There's going to be books, movies, TV shows about this for the next 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 years. I mean, it's just insane.
My favorite was in the very beginning when the guy from Tanzania did the PCR test on the goat and the papaya.
Didn't they kill him?
Oh, I don't know.
I think it was the president of Tanzania.
It was. Did he die?
Well, who's really dead, who's really alive? Who knows? All I know is I look in the mirror every day and I go, "Are you?" In the middle of it, I was like, "Am I real? This world is not. It's not. Am I a clone? Am I still me?" Very, very strange times.
Yeah. Tell me about your Facebook, how you lost your brother and like what were you saying on there that people were like done with you?
I think that was in 2016. So yeah,
that was way before.
Yeah, I was. I remember talking. I was doing some business with somebody. I was doing like business events. I used to teach internet marketing, and there was a woman I was working with who used to work with Bob Geldof. Have you heard of him?
Mm-mm.
So Bob Geldof was this Irish singer who'd had a couple of hits, but he became famous for Live Aid. So he was the guy that started Band Aid and Live Aid in the 80s, which was a massive con. Like the Red Cross, it was just another money laundering, siphoning operation based upon kids dying in some foreign country, and it was all siphoned off, and it was all
nothing's new under the sun,
and it was all to cover adrenochrome and harvesting and trafficking and everything else. I mean, so many weird things happened around him. Like his wife, Paulie Gates, was a TV star in England. She committed suicide. She ended up being with this singer from Australia called Michael Hutchence, who committed suicide. They had this daughter called Peaches Geldof, who was probably in her late 20s, 30s, 10 years ago. And she'd been tweeting about satanic stuff. I mean, basically, it's obvious they're all Satanists, right? And she was going against it, and she died. And I was posting on Facebook stuff about this, saying, look, these satanic...
Yeah, I could imagine in 2016, that would be like, people would be like...
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was deep.
I was obsessed with like darkness.
Well, I was deep in it. I was really deep in it. I mean... I grew up in a village. In my village, there was a lay preacher from the local church who set up a new church, and he was a pedophile. And I grew up with this this cult growing up around me. So I've always had a very big radar for cults and pedophiles, right? I spot him a mile off. And, of course, in the UK, we had Jimmy Savile. That's how I lost my last channel, talking about him. And on
I think
YouTube.
it's safe now.
Well, I don't want to risk your channel. No, I wouldn't want to damage anybody else's. I mean, so much. It's such a long journey as well. But yeah, I was talking about all this stuff because, if one child gets hurt by an adult, that's one child too many, and we're talking about a billion since the Second World War. That's 22,000 children a day.
That was the part that was so mind-blowing, is no matter which direction you went, if you were researching, you would come to the same end. So I had started it out through, like spiritual stuff, and then happened to see that crazy bishop. Gosh, what's his name?
Harry,
Yes.
I remember him. Is he not about anymore? Did you just give me a
I think
flashback?
he's still about, but
I
he
heard he
calls
abused loads of people
he calls
behind.
me Demon Fly, and I never did anything to him.
Well, you met some crazy people on this
This
COVID ride.
journey, man. And so it was so funny because he was talking about all the belay stuff. And then the belay stuff led to the other stuff. And so I was just like, wow. And then my sister, all political. So she went the political route, but then she ended up coming to the same place. And I think if it kind of goes back to, knock and you shall find.
Yeah.
It's crazy how much information I consumed in like 3 months. It was insane. And the best thing that I consumed was a book called Virus Mania. And it was written by an immunologist and then another researcher. And they go through every virus since the beginning of time. And they literally explain each one. And they even talk about Fauci from the 80s.
Yeah.
I couldn't pay people to read this book. And this was in 2020, not 21, not 22. It took so long.
I know it's been a real pain in the butt, but once I got into America with fake papers, have you heard me tell that story ever?
No.
So, I got invited to do the truth tour, and I was like, "Hang on, Biden's still in charge." Biden's in charge. I mean, you got this whole, you must be vaccinated, you must have proof. So I got all these fake papers done.
Oh gosh.
I didn't do it on here because so I got the papers done, and I was in the queue, and there was people in front of me being taken off into interrogation rooms for an hour, and I just got this message saying, "You're going to be fine, don't worry about it." So I was like, okay. So I just got there, thumped my papers on the desk, and the guy just looked at me and said, "Have you got any tobacco on you?" And I went, "Yeah, I've got some fags in my bag." And he said, I do the joke that he said, "We don't call them fags here," but I don't. He didn't actually say that. He just said, "Welcome to America." And I walked in, and I was looking over my shoulder, going, "Oh, do they know I've been slagging them off all this?" Anyway, I got in, and I knew, and all the way around America, we were followed by UFOs, and we had a private air show when we were at Cheyenne.
Well, that's weird.
No, it was weird and amazing. And I just knew it was, and it was all a spiritual war. The whole thing's been a spiritual war from the beginning.
Yes,
And
I
I
agree.
know. I mean, I told you off air that when I went on that Michael Jaco show, and he said I was in the secret space program.
Yeah, he said I was too.
Yeah, at the time I was like, I can't verify that. I'm not going to go. I cannot go around saying, yeah, I was in the secret space program, and
Right.
because I'd watched all the David.
Well, I mean, what are the chances that all three of us were too? He was like, you were, and you were, and
No,
you were.
it is possible.
Yeah.
Right? It's possible. But I've been watching the UFO stuff for years. I see UFOs my entire life. I'm an ex-pilot. I've been visited by UFOs. I've seen dragons made of light. I've seen elementals and fairies. I'm living in the UFO capital of Ireland. I mean, it's just insane. But the point is, I couldn't go around saying, "Oh yeah, I was in the SSP," because I'd watched the Corey Good, David Wilcox stuff over on whatever channel that was on.
Oh yeah, I forgot about those guys.
And I've been watching people. I've been watching Jordan Maxwell and for years, and I'd consumed all that information, and it's just full of shit. It's full of people lying and taking you and pulling you in, and you want to believe it. And it's like, well, maybe not all of them. I'm sure there's some genuine people out there. I haven't met many of them, but a lot of them are disinformation experts. And when you understand how clever they are at propaganda and disinformation and programming and MK Ultra, then I mean these guys know what they're doing. And I at the time I was like, oh, I can't go around people thinking I've said I'm in the SSP, because at the time
Right.
I was also like, well, how? It was like walking across a minefield every time you did a show. It was like the comments were so aggressive and nasty and demonic in many, many ways. And then I realized after time, the comments that were coming from the demons were all attacking me in exactly the same way they'd attacked me my entire life. They were going for my weaknesses, and they knew what my weaknesses were. There's no way the trolls would know the things that were going to affect me emotionally and personally. And it'd be the same little things. And then I went, hang on, because the demons know what you're thinking,
I
right?
call them nuisance demons.
Yeah, they're nuisance demons.
They're just enough to like make you get aggravated, but not enough to even reply.
Yeah, but then and that's why
Fly.
the trolls ended up not bothering me at all, because that's literally what they are. But then the demonic attacks got stronger and stronger.
Wow.
In 2020, 21, 22, 23, it was like there was one night, there was one on my back so heavy I had to climb up the stairs on my hands and knees. And and I had to really learn how to get rid of them. I mean, I really had to learn. And that was the thing. And that's when I found my voice.
Right.
Because my voice now is very different to what it was 5 years ago.
You mean audibly different?
Yeah, it's
Wow.
it's far stronger. I know who I am. I know what I'm here for. I love what I'm doing, and I know that almost every day I'm doing my very best to make a positive impact on the world, whether it's making somebody laugh, or whether it's healing people in our healing center, or whether it's somebody reading one of my books and writing to me saying thank you for
Or
sharing that.
your poetry.
So that, yeah, so I'm I'm not a saint, and I'm not anybody special, I don't think, in that respect. So I'm just doing what I'm told, really. And pretty much everything that I do is guided. And I don't mean by some voice in the sky. I do not channel. I do not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do not connect. I mean, when I went to learn Reiki about 8 years ago, and I remember saying to the Reiki teacher, "Where are these symbols coming from exactly? Where is it?" Because I've been able to heal people with my hands since I was young. I
Mhm.
didn't need Reiki to teach me how to do that. We've all got these abilities. It's not, you don't need some symbol or some dogma to tell you. And it's all limited hangouts. Everything, religion is limited hangouts. If it didn't, it was mainly full of truth, of course, otherwise you would never go.
Right.
But once you're in, they gotcha. And then you are in trouble. Unless you can, and that's not to say people who go to church are bad at all. Absolutely not. The it's all about your personal connection to God, and it's all about creating an ecclesia, which is when two or more together, God appears and work in His name, and that is beautiful. And so I'm seeing a lot of that. I'm seeing a lot of people actually finding that connection, decalcifying their point. And that's what the health part of this is
Ton of
all about.
people found their voices. A ton of people have awakened some.
Mm.
So that part is really very cool. But when you think about from the time that the Chinese were putting up those crazy videos of people collapsing and, making it so dramatic to now, and really it kind of really just ended in 2024, even though there's a continuance of the spiritual piece. But as far as like C19, that's kind of over. Did you think it would take 4 years?
No, I said it was like, very similar to the people in the First World War. This will be over by Christmas.
Yeah.
When Christmas 2020 came, I didn't do a show for about a week, and I just sat on my sofa going, what's going on? What am I doing this for? Because
Mhm.
even by that point, there were people obviously just doing it for the money,
Right.
obviously getting a kick out of becoming famous.
Right.
And then there was like this circuit, and it was like, you go on my show, go on your show, you do
Yeah.
this, you do that, you do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, along the way, I'd helped quite a few of them earn money out of it, because that was my background in internet stuff. I said,
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because I said, look, you've got loads of people trying to help you. You're going to end up, if this goes on, you're going to have to pay them. And you can. There's different ways of earning money. If you want to know what they are, I can tell you what they are. Because then some of them just ran with it and made millions.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, you're going to need resources because this, we're going up against a multi-trillion-dollar propaganda machine here. You've got to have money. And I've always had this pragmatic viewpoint. If you're going to spend all your time talking on a podcast and researching and writing and doing all this work, how are you going to live?
Right.
You've got to pay the bills, so it's got to be a win-win scenario. So I'd been through that, and I was like, why am I doing it? I don't. I'm not doing. I didn't. I've already been famous in my life. I didn't need. I'm not interested in that. Not massively, but I'd experienced that a bit. I'd already been rich twice. I didn't need that. I didn't see any value in that at all. And I was like, why am I doing it? And then I put out a message, I think, in 2020 saying, like, I'm not sure I'm going to carry on. And then I just got thousands and thousands of emails saying, please carry on.
Yes.
You're keeping me sane.
Yeah.
You're helping me out. And then I was like, I just didn't have a clue because I was just sat here talking to my computer.
Right.
You have no idea who you're reaching.
Right.
And then when I got to America, there were people crying when they met me. And I was like, it's just me. What are you crying for?
Yeah.
Like,
Aw.
but I had no idea. I literally had no idea.
It just shows you how low they were. That's sad. It is. It's surreal, actually. And so really, you thought it would be over pretty quick.
Well, no, I think, like I said, I'm an apocalyptimist, so
Yeah.
I always think things are going to be over quick.
Yeah.
But no, I think once I realized this is the long haul, this is the spiritual war, and if you can look at it from above and look at it from a time perspective, this is no time at all, really.
Right.
And this has been going on for a very long time. I feel privileged to be on the right side of this.
Yeah. Same.
When I sat down and thought about making the podcast properly, I was like, okay, you're really going to put yourself out there now because the whole world's going to hate you. But the two questions came into my mind. One was, how would I live with myself if I didn't stand up in terms of my children?
Right.
Because I don't want my children to grow up in the New World Order.
Right.
And I knew, well, I want them to know that at least I stood up and I said something. That was the main thing. And the second thing was, I knew we were going to be okay because I knew we were all supposed to be dead in 2017.
Oh yeah.
The 16-year plan involved Hillary winning in 2016.
Right.
Nuclear war in 2017. Most of us nearly dead. And I knew that there was a chance that, because one of the New World Order plans I'd read is that certain channels had been established years before in order to identify us, because who's the first people you get rid of when you're doing
you and me.
It's the dissidents, right?
Right.
So they were supposed to put dots on our doors. We were supposed to get carted off. Obama had already overseen the purchase of hundreds of thousands of electronic guillotines. The FEMA camps were full of coffins, multiple coffins. I knew all this had already been there.
It's already.
I know, but I'd already been through the fear of it, and I knew that hadn't happened. And the thing with Donald Trump is that I thought he was just another billionaire. I thought it was just another George W. Bush character when he got in. No, not when he got in, just before. And then I was listening to him. I was living in Morocco, and I was driving on a dusty road, and I had this podcast, and I could hear Donald Trump talking, and I was like, whoa. Suddenly I could hear it was like he's talking in code, and he was talking directly to me, and I was like, hang on a minute, this is different. This is not who I thought he was. And and I spent all of 2020 staying up till 4 a.m. listening to all of his press briefings about COVID. And in the middle of all those press briefings, he was telling us about light therapy,
HCQ,
ivermectin, not ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, oxygen, and and I listened to all of that. Made
disinfectant.
Yeah, the chlorine dioxide. I made notes on all of that, and then went and built a healing center doing all of that.
I think it was on your show. I forgot who you had. It was a couple. They were teaching people how to make HCQ with the grapefruit and the lemons. Who was that?
Yeah, that was a couple. Darren.
Okay. Well, I still make it to this day. I keep it. I just keep it frozen, and if anybody's not feeling good, I would just immediately start saying, "Here, take a couple tablespoons every couple hours."
No, it's good stuff. I mean, I've got. I mean, look at. I'll show you this.
Can't hear you.
When I
Yeah,
started, when I
we can't
started
hear
the
you.
podcast, this wall wasn't here,
Oh.
and the reason I built this wall is because I got all of this stuff from
Oh,
research.
wow.
So it's like an apothecary of I've tested thousands of things, and I'm like a doctor now.
Yeah.
People come and see me
You
and
and my
say,
daughter. That's
"Yeah,
awesome.
crazy."
Everyone's got their own apothecaries now. Yeah, and it's crazy how much we've learned. Absolutely amazing. What about, were there people who were like high profile that you were surprised that either like stood up for it and was kind of like surprisingly on our side, or anyone that you thought for sure they would have been on our side and you were so disappointed?
Well, that's still happening.
Well,
You know,
true.
there's people that I thought were mega, and then it's like, well, why are they not talking about that stuff? It's weird, because these things are a limited hangout. But I remember in 2020 being like, where are the doctors? Where are the good doctors? That's what we needed.
Yeah.
We needed good doctors to stand up and say, this is wrong. And I'm good friends with quite a few of those doctors now. There were some amazing people, but in terms of the UK, there was like Dr. David Cartland. He's been through hell, literal hell, because he stood up against it. But he had 2 jabs himself before he woke up. There's a professor that I had come and do a talk in this town. He was a knee surgeon in Harley Street. He stood up and talked about it. Ian. So I found good people along the way, but it was too little, too late. And the celebrities, that was, I never trusted them anyway. Most of them.
Right.
I don't think they're all bad, but I think most of them are, especially in showbiz. I mean, some of the sports stuff. I had people like some famous footballers like Matt Letitia on the show, but their kind of level of consciousness seemed to be in a different position to what I was talking about. They were kind of looking at it from a political point of view, and the politics has nothing to do with this. So this is
Right.
the devil versus God,
Yeah.
So I can't actually think of. There's certain people that I couldn't believe that I was speaking to. I mean, I was in the kitchen having a phone call with Roseanne 2 years ago, and I was
Oh,
like,
that's awesome.
I'm on the phone
Yeah,
to Roseanne.
she's a big anti-trafficking advocate.
Yeah, when I'm like, little old me, and I'm talking to Roseanne on the phone for an hour. It's like, what's going? This is crazy. So, yeah, it's amazing. But then there's all this. What I love about it, it's definitely all God's plan,
Right.
right?
I
So,
agree.
what does God do? Constantly surprises you and constantly puts things out there to either weaken you or strengthen you, And I just keep seeing it like this. It's like on a micro level, it's this choice or this choice. Which one are you going to make? Because each one has consequences.
Right.
And for me, the whole thing, for the majority of people with good hearts and souls that have survived this long, we are far stronger. We're tempered, like steel in a fire.
Yep.
And I mean that in a spiritual sense. My big concern has been on a physical and emotional and psychological level. This whole thing has caused a lot of damage. And, this is why, again, I built the healing center to try and help people along, because we have been over toxified. We need
Are
to
they
get.
just in Ireland, or are you putting them in other places as well?
Well, we opened one here
Okay.
nearly 2 years ago. We've had 750 franchise inquiries, but we've not opened another one yet because we're still building this one.
Smart.
And having a franchise is kind of like scary, because I didn't want to have another business. When I sold my last business, I was like, I'm not doing that again. I'm quite happy to work on my own if I'm going to work.
Right.
But I do have all these skills, so it seems like I got called to do it, and it's happening. And that's why we're doing what we're doing. But we'll see how that goes. I mean, the whole purpose of that was because in the Q post, the thing that I picked up that stood with me the most was one post. It said, "You have more than you realize, or you have more than you know," and that made me go, "Well, do we? Have we got the resources and the knowledge to do this now?" And the answer was yes. Let's just do it, and we just did.
It's awesome.
Because I got fed up with the whole medbed thing and the whole RV thing.
Oh my gosh, the med bed thing drove me crazy. It still does. And then I hosted a lady, and then she asked me to take it down because she was being harassed by the company because her husband was a former veteran who was asked to go into it, and within 24 hours of going into it went to a school and did some weird pow pow thing. And so she was trying to warn people, and so I had her on the show, and within 12 hours she called me saying, please take it down. Of course I would take it down. Like, to me, it doesn't, whatever she needed was fine, but I was blown away that med bed had mental uh, capacities for defiling who he really was. And she said that he even knew and said, you need to go stay somewhere and don't tell me where you are, and take our son. And like, yeah, it was crazy. So
Well,
wild story, just one of the many bizarre things. Kind of like, I remember when it first happened and Tom Hanks was the first person that was famous that got it. And that's kind of why I asked the question, because I remember at the time, I hadn't gone that far down the rabbit hole yet to have a totally different opinion on Tom Hanks. But
well, no, I'd been watching Isaac Cappy, and also there was this amazing woman in Australia called Mary 40, I think her name was. And she was exposed in Hollywood a long time ago. And there was some great bloggers and some amazing information I'd read for a long, long time. And because I'd been in that world, I'd seen it with some people that I knew. I'd seen the way that something took them over.
yeah,
And it's really bizarre when you look back on it, but it all makes sense now because I understand the fourth dimensional entities and the demonic world. And but the thing is, everybody's got to remember is we're more powerful than them. That's what this is all about. It's finding our power and learning how to use it. But yeah, I'd forgotten about the Tom Hanks thing. Was bizarre, man.
so weird. And then it just coincided with, he was being so bizarre, and like where he was so strange. And that's when people were saying that people were in Gitmo, but they were letting them do videos, and there was so many lies. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. And then, like, to me, the other one that kind of surprised me was Jordan Peterson, because he just seemed so smart, and
Yeah.
I really believed that he wouldn't do that. And then when he came on and he was crying about it, and he was saying, you guys forced me into this, like playing a victim. And I'm like, wait, isn't he a therapist? Like, that's therapy 101. Like, how come he's blaming other people for this? I was really surprised at that one. That was wild.
Well, I'm not surprised at anything anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, you could dangle anything in front of me, and I'd go, okay, yeah.
Right. Well, and then some of my favorite things were just how all of the Democrats were they're so having their parties still, but all their servers had had the masks on and they didn't. That was nuts.
Well, that was to show the people. I mean, it's the same as in the UK. They were having parties in Downing Street while everybody was locked down, and still the people haven't risen up.
No.
It's extraordinary.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Because once they get to where they completely can see it, you can't go along with the stuff anymore. You just can't do it. Kind of like you couldn't stay on Facebook. I had to leave Facebook. You know what I left Facebook for? I left Facebook because I was giving people medical journals proof of how the medical journal would start out with, people die from ivermectin in a study. But if you keep reading, it would say while intubated, when everyone would say, take that in the first 3 days or it's not going to be effective. And so I was like, wow, I cannot believe that even medical journals are lying. But then when I can show it to people, like, studies suggest, it doesn't say it's empirical, it just suggests. And people would be like, that's in a medical journal. And who are you? Are you a doctor? Are you going to? And so I was just like, I'm done. And then just watching my friends fight on my,
yeah, yeah.
I was like, I'll stay on X with all the strangers. We'll see how it goes.
Well, I was blessed with Facebook because a rally in the next town, and I drove to the town, and it was such a weird morning. My car started to break weirdly, and then when I got there, my phone wouldn't work. Because of that, I had to change my number twice. It just wouldn't top up, wouldn't top up, wouldn't top up.
That was
Change
weird.
changed the number. Because I changed the number, I got locked out of Facebook, I got locked out of Telegram. I lost 30,000-40,000 subscribers doing that. The vibe was crazy, and then there are weird things that I've learned about this whole area as well. And I knew that I was under attack. I mean, they did cut the fuel line on my car in 2021, which nearly killed me and 2 kids. But I've always felt protected all the way through.
Yeah, I
And
do. I feel protected.
yeah, and I'm like, I don't
And
care.
I'm also okay with whatever happens. Like, I'm
No, me
just
too. Me too. I mean, I don't want to leave my kids. That's the main thing.
right.
But I'm like, they're all good kids and they know how to survive. Whatever. I'm not afraid of dying, and I think that's the key. I keep saying that in pretty much all of my videos. Once you
Right.
realize you're an eternal spirit, what do you? Because the only thing they had over anybody was fear.
Right.
That's the only thing. That's
Yeah.
their biggest weapon. So if you
And
don't,
what's great about that is there's a lot of people that have come to a place where they don't fear anymore, and it changes your whole life. So it's not just in one area because you're no longer afraid of like these satanic crazed demons that are running the WEF, but that you can just enjoy life again. And I think that's one of the main reasons I really appreciate you, and I appreciate what you do. I even have many times been like, wait, it's been a while since you've done one of your morning coffees. I look
I
so
would,
forward to those.
I know, I really appreciate that. And do you know what? I'm trying to do more, because every time I meet someone, we get people come from all over the world to go to the healing center. And they're like, oh, I love your morning campers coffee time. And I'm like, I haven't made one of those for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And there's actually just a very simple reason. During, I go to this cafe across the road and I sit in this spot,
Mhm.
which is kind of my spot. It's
Mhm.
like if I walk in, somebody sat there, I get quite cross.
I love it.
And then I walk in and I get there and I go there first thing just as they open up, and I get a coffee. And then if somebody comes in that outdoor area, I can't film. And that's what happens during the warm times. People are coming in and out and I can't film there. So then I have to find somewhere else to do it. So sometimes I go to the car, but it's not the same. I like there with the coffee cup is. And then, we've been so busy with the healing center that some days it's just not possible to make a
Right.
video.
Right.
But then I've met so many people who say, please keep making those little videos. I mean, the whole short video on Twitter thing came from God.
Yeah.
It was 2 years ago, and I went to see my mother in England, and it was her birthday. And the next morning, I was being nagged again, and I'd never been nagged like this ever. And I got told, go on Twitter. And I was like, Twitter's censored. Just go on Twitter, make a video telling the vaccinated that you're going to be there for them. And I got told it'll get 1 million views. And when it
That
gets,
was such a good one. That's the one you have pinned, right? Or you
yeah,
did? I don't.
yeah. But
Okay.
I literally got told to do this. And I got told when it gets to 1 million views, there's going to be a big shift. And I was like, 1 million views? Who's going to watch 1
Yeah.
million views? I've got like 8,000 subscribers. How am I going to get 1 million views?
Yeah.
So I was putting it off and putting it off and putting it off until I got on the boat, the ferry. It was about 11:30 at night. I was exhausted. I looked like shit. And I thought, oh, I better do this video. Did it. And then went to sleep in the
It was
cabin.
so good, and it is so good. And if it's still pinned, people should go to your X account and watch it, because really, I think that's the thing that all of us really want. It's the same thing with all these dang pastors that are doing all this stuff and part of the freaking spiritual war, but you just so desperately want them to go, you know what? I did do it. I'm sorry. And to actually be contrite, it would be so much easier to forgive them, or to, put them in jail than, when they're just so evil and they won't let go of it. It just drives me nuts. But yeah, I wake up in the morning, and I love that you are up 6 hours before I am, at least. And when I wake up, I can see that, because I, of course, am always on Twitter first thing. I don't know why. It's one of the bad habits I have. I've given up so many other ones.
No, X is a great place. That's the best place to get your news in the world.
That's what I think.
It
I
is.
agree.
It totally is.
I agree. And so before I let you go, and thank you so much for coming on. I could literally talk about this subject forever. There were so many things,
It's
so many
endless.
things.
It's endless.
But I want to know who you think played the best villain
What, in James Bond or in real life?
in real life. Who played the best villain for COVID pandemic?
I think
Let's make a top 10 list first. Let's do that.
well, whoever played Joe Biden, I mean,
Oh yeah,
that
yeah.
was that was a quality piece of comedy for 4 years.
Yes,
And I think it was more than one person, but oh my god, that was. I mean, watching Joe Biden, it's just so obviously taking the Mickey, but so brilliantly done. I mean, we're talking the best script writers on earth and the best actors. Just amazing.
that's why Hollywood's died. They're all working for the.
Well, I hope that only the good guys are working for them. Biden, extraordinary. I think the person playing Keir Starmer right now,
Mm-hmm.
that is one hell of a performance because the whole country hates him. Extraordinary. The whoever played Prince Charles with the big fat fingers and everything. I mean, that was
Oh, the sausage hands. I forgot about that.
sausage fingers.
Jacinda.
Oh
Oh
yeah,
gosh,
yeah.
her.
I had a term for her in this book. I won't say it out loud, but I'll show you the picture
Okay.
because I bet maybe I shouldn't actually because I might offend people. I got told off for offending people in Florida. I got told I lost a Christian base because of all my cussing. I'll just show it very briefly for people. They can freeze frame it. Boom. There you go.
Oh my God, she will be etched in my head. Her teeth and just her, like, she was so smug and horrifying.
Yeah, well, Klaus Schwab has got to be up there.
Yeah, and Justin Trudeau's got to be up there too.
Oh my
Maybe he's in the top
god!
20. I don't know, but
No, he's top 10. He's such a slimy piece of. Ugh. I don't know. It's endless. I mean, there's so many horrible characters, and I don't know whether these were accidents.
Fauci. How did we forget Fauci?
I haven't forgotten him. I mean that the real. I mean, if this is real, how is this guy would be? It's mind blowing.
Mhm.
You know how many people he's killed.
Yeah,
Mind blowing.
yeah.
I hope it is all a Matrix and we just get pulled out as like a video game. We go, oh, that was good.
Yeah, like a
Was
movie.
realistic. That was realistic. I mean, the characters are endless, aren't they? I don't know who would be the best one. I don't know.
The ultimate villain. It's kind of tough.
Well, like I did put them all. I've got a long list of them in this book. Probably be good to refer to. I mean,
I wonder what the people who are watching think. Oh gosh, yes.
And there he is with his child trafficking father, which not many people know.
There's so many, like, even how Trudeau looks just like the
Well, it
Cuban
is Castro, yeah.
Castro. For some reason, his name left me, but unbelievable how much they look alike. And then his mom, insane. Like I learned a lot of history, though, I must say.
I'm not saying the words. But,
yeah, good job.
I got told off for this swearing, but I was like, if you can't call these people this word when they've just tried to murder you and your entire family and the whole world, when can you call them it? And that's part of reclaiming your voice as well,
right?
And that word used to mean
to be able to cuss.
Yeah, well, 600 years ago, that word meant a deep and honourable friend. So it's all about intention and meaning,
Yeah, I agree. My friend James True, that I was telling you, wrote about the best apocalypse ever. He likes to use cuss words too.
Well, I've deliberately not cussed on this show.
Thank you.
I think I might have done once or twice, but because I am getting more sensitive towards people. But back then, I was like, no, I'm swearing. I don't care. These people, if you can't see what they've done to everybody, they threatened my kids. They tried to steal my children. They are murdering everybody that I love. I'm not going to stand for it. I'm not having it.
Yeah. So when you look forward, if you were to predict something, because, Trump did make a point to say that there was the 250 anniversary of our country. Yeah, I guess it would be 250. That'll be in 2026. So
I hope to make it over because I want to see these world fairs. I want to see. I mean, I said 5 years ago, I said I would move to America in a heartbeat, but only Trump's America. I don't want to go there. I don't want a democratic America.
You don't want to live in Newsom's California.
No, no. I mean, he's destroyed the place. I mean, it's just
He really has. It is horrifying. And then he starts a podcast.
yeah. Well, they replaced him years ago anyway. It's all working. You know, it's what's going on in Ireland is horrific, but it's working. It's getting people out. We are lifting spells here. You know, generations of trauma. The way that it's being done is such a gentle plaster ripoff. It's really beautiful in that respect, because even though it's very frustrating for people like us, it's beautiful because ultimately all any of us that have ever spoke out against any of the horrors want to save everybody.
Right.
Even the ones that were shouting at us and telling us that we were conspiracy theorists and nutters and dangerous and all that. We were just trying to save their lives.
And I don't even get as frustrated anymore. And it's funny because I guess I've become, I have like this callus, and I can speak about these things, and they freak people out. And I don't even mean to freak people out. And it's kind of like the old me used to be like, oh, I'm going to try and talk this person into it. And now I just kind of, I'm waiting. Just learning.
Yeah.
I'm learning forbearance.
Well, I did a talk on Sunday in front of a small crowd, and I was talking about various things, and then I mentioned the dragon and the UFO, and I could see this guy in the middle of the crowd going like this. He pushed himself in the back. I said, "Oh," I said, "I'm sorry, I forgot that not everybody here would be." I said, "Don't worry, it's okay. I'm not crazy." And then I bought him a drink later because they all met down the pub, and you know, people are. I'm very tolerant of the fact that people are at different levels of consciousness of all of this, and I don't feel superior in any way. I just wish they'd. I just still want to slap them around the face with a fish. The ones that still believe all the nonsense. It's just still nuts, but not as nuts as it was.
No, but people are still getting shots.
I know. That's what I said. God is definitely God in charge, because it's like I'm still giving you the choice.
Yeah.
And you've still got a chance.
You're still failing.
Yeah, you're still failing, but you've been given the opportunity. You can choose. It's always a choice.
Right. I think one of my favorite ones too was Nancy Pelosi going to the hair salon. Did you see those?
Yeah.
Where they had the interior pictures of her walking around, and she's the only person in there, and nobody has masks on, and that was crazy. And wasn't Boris Johnson at like some party like the night it was?
That's what I was saying. They were having parties in Downing Street when everybody was locked down.
Oh, it's so funny.
Yeah, getting drunk, and that annoyed a lot of people, but it worked. It woke a lot of them up. I think Boris. I mean, when COVID hit, the Prime Minister of Great Britain disappeared into hospital for 10 days, and the guy that came out was a different Boris.
It is crazy, especially, I mean, I agree with you. Biden is the one that looks so different. It's insane to me. And I remember Madison Marquette, when she said that she went to a military tribunal, that the person that she was talking about, she had to say that's not him because it wasn't him. She believed it was someone else, but she says the person that is supposed to be him, which I thought was really interesting. And nothing ever really came of that, except for that a lot of the people that Madison named from all the churches they were stepping down or losing their churches, or some of them are in like cases with P. Diddy. I don't know if you're aware of all the church scandal going on in Texas.
Well, no, I've got a vague idea, and none of it surprises me. I mean, the church in this country had to fall. I remember there was a guy outside the cafe, and he was on his way to church, and I said, "Where are you going?" He said, "I'm going to church," and he was putting his mask on, and I said, and I knew this guy was not a good guy, and I said, "Why are you wearing a mask?" He said, "Because of COVID." I said, "Are you saying that God got it wrong?" And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, God, you believe you were created by God, right?" And he went, "Yeah." So I said, "Well, why are you wearing a mask?"
Yeah.
And he couldn't answer the question. And it was like his head was going, and then I was like, any church that made people wear masks, that was just God showing it. They're fake. Yeah.
They all closed, and then they had outdoor ones. They were trying to get around it in California, and then Newsom said that they could be out there, but they couldn't sing. Do you remember that?
Can't sing because
It's just
you'll catch it with the singing, the saliva. I remember that. Yeah.
and the
Oh my.
dancing nurses are happening, and they're of course, oh, we're so full. The hospitals are so full that we all have time to figure out a line dance for the whole group.
Yeah. Well, it's it's been amazing, and it's really lovely to catch up with you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you coming. Tell everybody where they can find you and your books and everything you're doing.
Um, well, this book is about to come. This book I released. This is the big one, the poetry one. That's sold out, but I think there's a new version coming out on Amazon soon. This one, Weapons of Mass Protection: Practical Tools for Spiritual Warfare. That was written with my friend Abby. That's on Amazon. The Mark Attwood Show is where everything's archived. X is where I'm most busy. I'm on Rumble, BitChute, even though that's just been banned in the UK. Telegram, even though I've been banned on the chat recently, and that's going down. So I'm still around, and I've live5dhealth.com is the healing center. Go and have a look at that if you're interested in that.
Yeah, people come from all over the world. They can come visit you.
Yeah, we're running our first retreat in 3 weeks. So we're doing reset, physical, mind, body, spirit, proper. We've already built the best place in this country. There's nowhere that's got all the stuff we've got under one roof. So
What do you have? Tell us real quick.
hyperbaric oxygen therapy, red light therapy, ultraviolet light therapy, sound and light therapy, sound beds, quantum healing therapy. We've got somated chi emitting quantum powder in the walls of the building, which heals you just by being there. We've just building a sauna and an ozone cold plunge bath, and we think the world's first cleanest water steam room. We've got
That's a great idea. I never thought about that, because if you don't know what water's coming in, you're just
I know
sitting there steaming in fluoride.
Nobody seems to have ever thought about it. Even the guy that has fitted the steam room, he's been doing it for 40 years. He said all of them just use the tap water, and we've installed things that get rid of all of that. Loads of stuff. Holographic sound therapy. We've got Brown's gas, which is hydroxy therapy. We spend a lot of time talking about the water. We've got Ireland's first hydrogen bar. We've got a health and wellness store. It's just really amazing.
Is there a hyperbaric chamber, or did you already say that?
Yeah, that's the first thing we.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had people on talking about how it really can cure the brain if people are depressed, or it
doesn't cure anything. It just lets your body do what it needs to do. None of this stuff cures anything. It just accelerates the detoxification. Nobody's sick, they're toxic.
Right.
So we've got to get the toxins out, and then we've got to make the cell strong, and we've got to nourish it, because everybody's malnourished.
Amen. And that's what virus means, poison. So
I thought virus was Latin for BS. That's what I thought.
Well, thanks again. Bye, everybody. Thanks for
Carmen.
coming. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.